The following program is a Creative Magic Network production.
You're listening to the Frederick Bai Show, where sky is the limit and space is the place. Here's your host, Frederick Bai.
Alrighty, hello everybody. Welcome. Come on, sit down, relax, put your earbuds on this video podcast. Welcome to the Frederick Bai Show. This is the first show of 2016. This video podcast is about unleashing your creativity. We talk to experts. We step into the unknown. It is an inspirational, magical, intuitive radio podcast as we chat with charismatic artists from around the globe. Musicians, singers, radio hosts, people, photographers, everything in between. And I said the first show of 2016 actually is the first of 2017. I am Frederick Bai, the man of the hour, the man with the power sweet to be sour. Hey, I'm funky like a monkey, I sting like a bee, produce sweet honey, and I am pretty. I am your favorite French Canucker, and I am so happy. The way we're going to kick this year off, we're going to kick it with a fascinating book. Her name is, we're going to talk actually to the author of the book. Her name is Lovelyn Bettison. We had her on the show before. She's a novelist. She's the author of Isle of Gods, Book 1, Damek, and you can find her at lovelynbettison.com. That's LOVELYNBETTISON.com. How are you today, Lovelyn?
I'm doing great. I have to say that it was a very exciting intro for a podcast.
Thank you very much. As I said, I had you on the show, so we're not going to go over your background all over again because you talked about it. You talked about it on the last episode we did together, and I saw that you had a book out. I asked you to be on the show. You said yes, sent me the book, and thank you for taking me on this ride. And I can't talk about the characters. Some of the quotes in the book are very, very good. So talk to us a little bit how how the book came about, how you wrote it. What was the process, the creative process?
The process was actually really funny because the book is completely different than what I set out to do in the beginning.
How so?
In the beginning, I was going to do a realistic novel, no magic, no fantasy, nothing like that. And it was just going to be about a tidal wave. And it was going to be about different characters and how a tidal wave affects their lives. That's all it was going to be. And wow. I got the idea from a friend who was super into waves, and one day she was saying to me, don't you think there should be a book about waves where people just talk about different waves? And I was like, I don't know if that would be such a good idea, but maybe it could be a good idea, who knows. And so I started playing with that idea, and then I wrote the first chapter about this character in this book, Damek, and it was just about him being at sea and a big wave coming. But then after I wrote it, I kept looking at it and thinking there's something else going on here. There's something more that I need to put in this. And then it just evolved over time and completely changed. Like, this book took a long time for me to write because it started out as something completely different and then went through a complete rewrite. And it's actually a series of 5 different books. Mm-hmm. And so this is the first one, and then each one is told from a different character's point of view, and the story just evolves over the series.
And, because in the book you have a lot of great cliffhangers, and it's something that I think is very important as a reader, and the way you finish a chapter, you leave us with something to think about. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, like you leave us, it's a cliffhangers. Is it hard to end with cliffhangers? Like, did you find it challenging? I mean, or does it come easy to you?
In the beginning, it was challenging. Like, if you look at my older books, like my first book, for example, it doesn't end in cliffhangers or anything like that. And the idea of ending a chapter in a cliffhanger is just, I think, a process that writers go through as you get better at writing and you try to figure out what's going to keep a reader going. And how can you really get people involved into the story. So when I structured the book, I went back and I made an outline. And so I came up with the ideas of this is how this chapter is going to start like this and finish like this. And I did that with all the chapters. So that's how I got the cliffhangers in there, which is a really good vehicle to keep a reader engaged. And so someone can just sit down and read the book in one day because they're really into it. They want to see what's going to happen next.
And what you said earlier, I think is because it reminds me of a quote from Picasso, is that he was never able to paint the picture that he first had in his mind. Like, it always changes. I think, now this is just my opinion looking from the outside. Do you think that some writers are afraid of that? Like, they really want what they had in their head, and they don't have that flexibility to kind of just go with the flow after that. Like, you understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying, but I think everyone has a different process, and there's different styles of writing. And some people are very just go with the flow, let things go organically. They get ideas from dreams and things, and they just write that stuff, and they say the characters just carry them away. And then there are other writers who have very strict outlines, and they follow an outline, and they make sure they hit all the points in the outline, and it's very regimented. And usually the people who write like that are the people who write the fastest, because they know exactly what's going to happen. The other way, you need to have a lot of time just contemplating and staring out the window and stuff and trying to figure out where it's going to go next. But if you have an outline, then you can write very quickly. And I used to be very kind of just a dreamer, in that I just have a dream about my story, and then I just start writing from that dream, and I have no idea what's going to happen. But then I started outlining too, and I do a combination of those two things, which is good because it keeps that creativity, and things are not so rigid that I'm not going to change it up. But I can also write things relatively quickly. Like this series, it took a year for me to write it, but you think about that, it was 5 books in a year.
Oh, wow. How long did it take to write this one book?
This one book, this is funny. Like, the first book is the hardest. The first book took the longest. It took me a couple months to write. And then I made an appointment with my first editor, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to have this go through it. The developmental editor who looks through the plot and tries to see if there's any holes and things. And so I made that appointment with her. And then when I made that appointment with her, suddenly I was like, I don't like what I wrote. And then I rewrote.
What did she say? What did she say when? What did she say?
I didn't even tell her. I rewrote something completely different in the 2 weeks before my appointment to get her the manuscript.
Wow.
So then I just sent her that thing this completely new thing that I wrote in 2 weeks. Yeah. And then she looked at that, and she thought it was pretty good, but I had a lot of things to change. And so then I changed stuff up, and that took a month for me to change things and add things that need to be added. And then I sent it to my second editor. And then, And
okay, so it took you around more than 2 months, obviously, the whole process. You wrote 5 books in 1 year. How many words approximately per book?
Each book is about 50,000 words.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. And so do you write every day?
Yes, I do. But here's the thing. I tend to have carpal tunnel syndrome. Do you know that?
I'm not sure. No. What is it?
I was going to say it's a repetitive strain injury, but maybe that doesn't make any sense to people. It's a wrist injury that people can get from typing. Also, people get it who work in factories. If you do the same movement over and over again with your wrist, then you get an injury where you have like numbness and tingling in your fingers. And you can have pain shooting up your arm. So I have that. I've had that problems with that for a long time. So I used to be a massage therapist, and I actually originally got it when I was a massage therapist.
Oh, okay.
And so typing is not really the best thing for me to do. But I got a dictation software called Dragon.
Wow.
So
I heard
I speak, I talk all my books. I dictate at most everything.
Really?
And that has made all the difference as far as speeding things up. And I'm not having problems with my hands anymore. And I type when I do my editing.
Okay.
But when I'm doing my first drafts and stuff, everything's spoken.
Wow. And how is it different from writing? Because, writing, when you write, you're kind of directly connected to the either the screen or the paper. Like, is it the same feeling? The same? Do you see it? What's the difference? Are there any differences, basically? And
it's completely different.
Can you be fully creative, like at your best, by speaking the words out first instead of typing them?
It's different. You have to get used to it. Like when I first started doing it, I was like, maybe this isn't going to work. Like maybe I'm not going to be able to write as well.
Yeah, because I'm
maybe
thinking
my ideas aren't going to be like. I was really iffy about it when I first started, but then I decided to just push on, because the software also has to learn the way you speak. So there's a lot of mistakes in the writing in the beginning.
Okay.
And you have to get used to the idea of speaking your punctuation.
Okay.
It's like I have to say a sentence and then at the end say period, or if I want a comma, I have to say comma.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in the beginning, it was really hard and it was really different. And I just started dictating not just fiction, but just other things too, just to get used to the idea of doing it. But then as the months passed, I got more and more used to it. Now it's quite easy for me. And I feel like it's still different than typing, but I feel it's not hampering my creativity or anything.
Because I would think that you cannot go as deep. You know what I mean? When you talk than when you write. But what I'm hearing from you is you can get as deep, but it's just you just got to get used to it. Yeah,
you do. You just have to get used to it.
Okay. Wow, that's fascinating. And I heard about that software from different people, so that's yeah. All right, once again, we're here with Lovelyn Bettison. She's a novelist. She's the author of Isle of Gods, Book 1, Damek. You can find her at lovelynbettison.com. And right before continuing this conversation, folks, if you have a passion, something that fuels curiosity, but on top of getting fascinating interviews such as this one, straight to your inbox when you subscribe to our free creative magic community, you will get super cool exclusive gifts in return, such as the ebook Happiness Quotes by the ambassador of happiness herself, Maura Sweeney, one of our hosts. It's a fascinating book, quotes from the greats, that she wrote herself. And all you got to do is go to frederickbaya.com. That's Frederick with a C, bye like bye.com, and subscribe for free. All right, let's dive into the book. Really, Damek, he's a controversial guy. He's kind of like he's half desperate. He's a little bit desperate. He gave up his passion to be a sailor, to be with his family, but he's went through the divorce. He's a spiritual guy. Now, how did you come up with Damek?
Actually, as I was. I just realized that I didn't really explain what the book of the series was about.
Well, that's true. I didn't even ask you. So what is the book about?
So let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
The series actually takes place in an alternate reality. So it's a world very much like this one, but people worship a group of beings that live on an island as their gods. And they have altars to these beings and they pray to these beings. And the island that the beings live on is quite remote and difficult to get to. So there are people who are trying to get to the island, but it's very dangerous. And most people who try to get there end up dying or disappearing. And the first book, before I tell you that, also there's kind of a crisis going on in this world where all the babies who are born are being born quite sick, and most babies end up dying a few weeks into life. Mm-hmm. And the people are praying about this for help, but the gods have seemed to have abandoned them. They're not getting answers for these prayers. So the first book is about Damek, and he is a sailor and an explorer and a hunter of gods. But like you said, he's kind of a controversial guy. He's made some mistakes, kind of messed up his family a bit, and he decides to set aside his passion of sailing to stay at home and get his family back together.
But he cheated. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, he did. But he starts seeing these visions of a woman. And at first he doesn't know, is he out of his mind? Is this something real? And this woman is compelling him to start sailing again. So he decides that he's going to start sailing again because he believes that this is a vision and that she can help him find the Isle of Gods. So that first book, this first story, is from his point of view, and it's all about his journey to find the Isle of Gods.
Right. So Damek. Okay, let's start with him because he's the main character. How did you come up with him? Did you know somebody who's like Damek? How did it come to you that this character?
I don't know anyone that's like him, but I feel a lot of times they say that authors take little pieces of themselves and they put them into their characters. Yeah. So maybe every character in every book that I write is a little bit of me somehow.
Because it's easier to get into that character too, because you gotta get into it. You gotta feel it.
Yeah, you do. And I was interested in the idea of writing someone who is quite flawed, but who you could care about and be rooting for.
Yeah.
And, he made some mistakes in his life, but his ultimate goal is to do the right thing and to try to help people. Mm-hmm. Really. Like it might even look like he's being selfish in the beginning to the outside world, but really he's doing the best that he can, or he knows how to, working with he had a bad upbringing and he feels I think he has some self-esteem issues.
Yeah.
And, he's trying his best to help the rest of humanity.
Yeah. And one quote that I really like in your book is he's looking for a job. He doesn't have anything that's, he's not necessarily qualified for anything. And you're right, like most employers these days want you to have some kind of degree. And I dropped out of school as soon as I could. It wasn't that I didn't like learning. It was just I didn't like the methods they use for teaching. How I'm curious, how did you come up with that quote? Because it's something that you believe yourself. Because I believe that, I feel that way. But how is it something that you feel that way yourself?
It's not something that I feel like for myself, but I've seen it in other people. Like I think the way the schooling is set up, it's very regimented and it's geared to one type of learning.
Right.
Like I was very good in school and I had no problem with sitting in a chair and listening to a teacher and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people, that's not a way that's conducive for them to learn, especially I think more so boys than girls. I think boys have a harder time with just sitting in a classroom all day and just listening to someone talk. They need more active learning.
Right. Well, right.
And I think there are a lot of people like that, and they have a problem. They don't do well in school academically, but that doesn't mean they're not really smart. It's just that type of learning didn't suit their smarts.
And I think women listen better, maybe, because I've been a fitness trainer for a few years, and I can tell women are more, when you tell them to do things, it's just they do it Sometimes I think with a guy, there's this kind of ego or something. You know, they don't listen as much. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you. All right, Lord. How do you say that in English? Is it Lord? Is it Lord?
It's actually Spanish name is Lourdes.
Yeah, Lourdes. Okay. Hey, how do you come up with these names? I'm curious. Damek, Lourdes, Resnick, Raul.
Baby naming sites.
I'm sorry?
Baby naming websites.
Oh, okay. All right. So Lotus, she's the other woman. Well, not the other woman. She's his.
She's the wife.
Yeah. And how did you come up with her?
Here's a funny.
Some people.
Here's a funny.
Yeah,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, because some authors see characters in their dreams, you know. So, but go ahead. What's your process?
Well, I see characters in my dreams too, and in the beginning, that's where all of these characters came from, like a little scene that kind of played out in my head. Mm-hmm. But with Lourdes, I had a problem with her originally when I wrote the first draft. My editor sent it back to me and said, "Is she supposed to be likable in the end? Because right now she's a bit too harsh." And so there are a lot of things I had to go back and change about her because I made her too angry in the original draft.
Oh, okay. How is it to work with editors? Is it sometimes ego crushing? Is it hard to take criticism? Is it easy? Are they kind? Are they? How is it for somebody who's never worked with editors? Maybe somebody who wrote a book and they have not edited it yet. You know, how do you find the process?
In the beginning, I was terrified of getting my book edited.
Why?
Because you're a writer, you spend so much time coming up with a story and coming up with characters, and you pour so much into it, and you don't want anyone to tell you something's wrong with it. And you don't want anyone to tell you that you need to change something because you feel like I worked so hard to get this perfect. Mm-hmm. And it's hard not to, in the beginning, take it personally and think what the person is saying to you when they say you need changes is, you're a bad writer. This is terrible. Which is not what they're saying at all. They're just trying to help you make your writing better.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of grow a thicker skin about the whole thing because, it's all a process. And you want to put out the best book possible. You want the writing to be good. You want the story to be good and engaging, and you want people to enjoy it. And in order for that to happen, you need to have other people look at it and tell you what needs to change, because you, as the writer, you love the story, you love these characters, and you put on these blinders and you're just in it all the time. And then it becomes difficult for you to see any problems that are with it, because you have this idea in your head about what it is. And maybe that idea didn't come out on the page that good, but because you have that, what it is in your head already, you don't see it when you look at the page. You don't see the problem or the thing that you've missed. Even this can happen in the plot with the stories and with the characters, but the easiest way, I guess, for me to describe it is as something as simple as grammar. Like, you can write something and then you reread it, and you reread it so many times that you might have a stupid grammar mistake in it, but you just don't see it because in your head you know what that was supposed to say. Yeah. So you just don't see the grammar mistake. Mm-hmm. And then you need someone else to look at it who's going to see that.
Right. And did you read the book? Stephen King's book on writing. Actually, the title of the book is On Writing. Did you read that?
Yeah, because I did. That's one of my favorite writing books.
Yeah, because am I mistaken? But you were careful not to put any adverbs in it. Am I right? Because I was like, I'm sure she read On Writing or something. And then were you careful about that? Because I don't remember seeing like adverbs,
Well,
or very few of them.
well, that's like a writing rule
Yeah.
that some people say. But you know, when you write something, there's a lot more in it than what's in it when it's finally through. Like Stephen King even talks about that on writing about, I can't remember what the percentage was, but it was some super high percentage of
what?
just cutting out of
That's
the story.
10%.
Like
I remember I read it. Yeah, 10%.
Yeah. So there's lots and lots of stuff that gets cut out because you're just thinking about the story and just going through whatever goes into your head, whatever comes into your head, and you're writing all that stuff down. But then when you go back and edit it, you need to cut out all the stuff that doesn't really pertain to the story. Like if it doesn't move the story along, you need to cut it out. If the words aren't really serving a purpose, you need to cut those out.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cutting that happens.
Yeah, right. You wrote from a male point of view. Is it difficult to be a female and write from a male point of view?
Yes.
How so?
I'm always afraid. Like I would ask my husband sometimes, like I would have him read a part. And I was like, does this guy sound too womany to you?
I didn't feel that. I felt that you really got it. Like,
thank you.
Yeah. I didn't feel that, but I'm curious because you got to think like a man, and and especially for a male writer, it's harder to think like a woman. Maybe it's easier for women to think like men than men to think like women. I don't know.
I don't know, but I get the idea about how to do that, like how to write from a male perspective, just by reading different books from male perspectives and seeing how those are written to try to give me some kind of idea. Like, have you ever read Gone Girl?
No. I heard about it, obviously.
I think she does an excellent job of writing from the male perspective in that book.
Really?
Excellent.
Which book actually... there was one book that I read that actually was like surprised how well it was written from the male. Oh, yeah. With somebody behind the door. It was an author I interviewed. But, I was surprised. I almost thought sometimes, I'm sure she's not the one who wrote it, but, she actually is the one who wrote it, because I was like, oh, yeah, she really got it. But, all right, so.
That's part of the magic of being a writer, though. You get to try to be in somebody else's head.
Yeah.
Like, imagine yourself as someone else. Imagine yourself as some guy who's a sailor. Like, what are you going to say? What is your life going to be like? What are you going to be thinking about?
Why did you choose a sailor? Why did you choose sailing?
That originally is just a carryover from the book originally being about a wave.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's just a carryover of that, because I was like, well, I want to start the book where the wave starts at sea. Right. And so I wrote that first part about sailing. And then after that, I was like, well, this isn't really going to be a realistic novel because I'm going to make it about gods and stuff. But I kept the sailing. Yeah. So I had the idea of the gods living on an island.
So your book is spiritual, it's fantasy too. It's, was it easy to mix both? I imagine, how was it? Because in the beginning it was supposed to just be reality based. But how was the process of just mixing fantasy and God and, because I imagine you can go to many more places creatively when it's fantasy, because all of a sudden it's like, boom, but I think fantasy doesn't come easy to everybody.
No, fantasy doesn't come easy to everybody, but something that comes naturally for me. All of my books they have some kind of magic in it. I'm just drawn to magic and the idea of magical realism and things like that. And that was part of the problem, I guess, with the original idea, was writing something that's realistic isn't that attractive to me. I want to throw some magic in. And honestly, when I first started writing it and I thought, oh, I'm going to write this as a realistic novel, I was totally doing that because of some of the reviews on my other books where people were like, then it had magic in it, and that's not realistic, and I hated that. And I was like, maybe people don't like reading stuff with magic in it. Maybe I should quit with all the magic.
Oh, no,
which is
you
a
couldn't
big
be further
mistake.
from the truth. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is a big mistake, because that's me veering off of what I naturally do and what I naturally want to do to try to please somebody else. Why would I do that? Right. The point of me writing these books is to express something that I want to express, that I feel like I can contribute to the world. And if I'm trying to bend that into something else that I think somebody else might like, then I'm not being true to myself and what I want to do.
Right.
The way you contribute best to the world is by using the talents that you have, the things that interest you and you naturally, and magnifying those things.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Once again, we're talking with Lovelyn Bettison. She's a novelist. She's the author of Isle of Gods, Book 1, Damek. And you can find her at lovelynbettison.com. And guys, right before continuing this conversation, we would like to thank those who pledged to our Patreon page. You are really helpful to the show, and we are grateful for your help. In case you're wondering, Patreon is a simple way for you to contribute to the network and podcast every single month and get super cool exclusive rewards in return. I promise you will love the perks. Our Patreon page is at frederickbaia.com, and click Patreon in the header. That's Frederick with the C, bye.com, and the money is used to cover our production costs and editing time. You can contribute for as low as $1 a month, though. That's pretty cool. So go now, frederickbaia.com. All right, the setting is you created a secret city.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with it? What was your influence? Because I think there's a movie that talks about secret city, if I'm not mistaken. But how did you come up with it?
Oh, is there a movie that talks about it?
Yeah, I googled it. I was like, is this a real city? And I then find it's not a real city, but there was a movie. I didn't get into it really. I just saw it on the Google listings.
Huh. Oh, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I just made it up,
really?
And I based
the name too.
Yeah, the name too. I just made something up, but I based it partially on my hometown, which is Pleasantville, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And it's right by the water, but it's kind of a depressed town. Maybe it's not now, but it was when I was living there. Okay. And so I based it on that.
Okay. And is it easy for you to write the setting? Because some people, they say dialogue is the easiest. It comes to them easily. But oftentimes the setting is kind of the pain in the butt. Where you have to be more, you have to be detailed, and you have to put people. What is it? What comes easiest to you? The setting, the characters, or the dialogue?
I agree. Dialogue is the easiest. Mm-hmm. Dialogue is no problem. Sometimes I will just write dialogue and then I have to go back in and fill in stuff. But dialogue is the easiest thing. And it's the thing that comes most naturally for me. But I like writing settings too. Because I just like creating the world. Coming up with the character and then coming up with where the character lives and what the character does every day and what this world is like and what their life is like. All those things are important to the plot and the story and, are very interesting. But for me, a scene really starts with the dialogue. What are these people saying to each other? What does this stuff mean that they're saying? How does this draw the plot forward?
Right. Page 65, you're right. Some of us can fool ourselves into being happy in the small spaces and with the roles we're given, but others have to take flight. We are no good at pretending. We can't live a life that is less than authentic. We have to leave before we suffocate. How'd you come up with that quote? Because that's another interesting one. I underline.
That's just based on, I guess, the way I feel about life. Yeah. I try to live a life where I'm doing the things that I want to do. It's hard for me to just fit into other people's ideals and live a small life when I feel like I could be doing so much more.
Right.
And part of the story and part of what the story is based on is the idea of taking responsibility for your life and taking control of it. Because in this world that I wrote about, a lot of the people, they have a very strong sense of what destiny is and what the gods have determined for their life. Mm-hmm. And they just walk around doing, like, just accepting things as they come, as like, this is what the gods gave me and this is the way it has to be. And Damek is different. He doesn't want to accept his destiny. He wants to create his own destiny.
Right.
And that's the message, basically, of not just that one book, but I think the series as a whole, is that you can create your life. You don't have to accept what you were given. You can do more. Like, it might be hard. I mean, it might be hard. It's definitely going to be hard if you're going against the grain, but there's so much more potential in you than you can even imagine. Have you heard of, I can't think of the name of the book. It's a book about a Navy SEAL. But anyway,
no.
In the book, the guy talks about training, and he talks about how most people only do 40% of what they're capable of. Yeah. He's talking about physical training, but that's true with, I think, everything in life, including like your mental abilities. Like, once you get to a point where it's hard and you hit that wall, a lot of people give up and they say, okay, I wasn't meant to do this thing. I'm going to just fall back and just do what I was doing before. But you have to be willing to push beyond that wall where it's hard. And then once you are willing, you show that you're willing to have that struggle and push beyond it. That's when you can break through to the other side, to what you're truly capable of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, I think I was going to say another quote that relates to what you just said, that is in your book too. And I think it relates to what you just said. You wrote, there is no, well, actually it's Damek who speaks. There is no destiny. Your parents made choices just as you have always had choices. When mortals don't want to take I'm sorry, it's not Damek. It's anyway, but that's what's written. That's what's written. When mortals don't want to take responsibility for those choices, they blame the gods, but all I can do is observe. I can try to influence mortals with visions, but ultimately what they do is their own choice. That was never taken away from you, even though some seem to think it was. And later on that same page, you're right, we spent more time bowing before altars and buying gifts to offer to the gods than we did living. So all those offerings mean nothing. And I think, you know, I was going to ask you what was the moral of the book, and that's what I love, because this is the types of books that I love, where you learn something. Like, for example, I just finished during the holidays Paulo Coelho's last book, The Spy, and latest book, The Spy. And, you know, this is why he's really one of my favorite authors, because you learn something. It's fiction, but you learn something. And this is what I find in your book too. You learn something there. There's always a moral. There's always something that, you know, and I don't know. I think that's just great to me. That's one of the reasons why I like it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's the reason why I write, because I have these things that I want to tell people, like lessons that I've learned in my life that I want to share. And I feel like the best way to do that is through a story.
How'd you come with Elim, the god, the god of gods?
Yeah. Again, it was basically just like a dream, an idea I had in my head that's how they all come about.
And what about Raoul, the sailor? Because he makes me think of the guy from The Simpsons, the sailor from The Simpsons, a little bit, you know. He's kind of out there, you know. He's kind of that's a funny character. I mean, how'd you come up? Which other character influenced?
Oh, well, originally, this is kind of funny. I was thinking about kind of like a sailor or a pirate, and then I kind of thought about Captain Hook.
Oh, okay. And so you basically base his character off of Captain Hook?
Well, originally, but not really in the end, you know.
And yeah, and also one other thing I noticed in your book is there is confusion and feelings among gods.
Mm-hmm.
And you break the traditional perception, because we think gods are, just perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And was it easy to write? And was it done on purpose?
It was done on purpose. It was definitely done on purpose because the whole idea was that the mortals are thinking of these gods as perfect beings who can fix their lives and tell them what they should be doing. But really, that's not the case. They're putting off their lives onto other beings that are just as imperfect as they are, and are having struggles and difficulties also. And I think that really, when I thought about the idea, it was basically, how sometimes as people, we idolize other people and we look at someone else and think, oh, this person's got it all together. They've got such a great life. They know what they're doing. I need to try to be like this person. But we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And we all have our own struggles, and you can't see everyone else's struggles. And you shouldn't idealize other people and say, this person is perfect. This person is who I want to be. Because what you should be is the best version of yourself. You can't be anybody else. And everybody's struggling with something. You just don't know what that something is.
Right. That's amazing. That's fascinating. Okay. We got about 3 minutes left. Talk to us about when is the next book going to come out, and what's next for you, and where can we buy your book?
I don't know when this is going to air, but from when this is being recorded, the next book is coming out next week. Awesome. And the next book is called Amara, and it's told from the point of view of Amara, which is the woman that Damek sees in his visions.
Okay.
So in that book, you'll get to know more about the gods and more about what's going on the Isle of Gods.
That's true. Today we didn't talk about Amara, but she's a very, very important part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
very important.
And all right. And also, where can we buy your book?
The book's available only on Amazon right now, because I have it in the Kindle Unlimited program. It'll go wide in 3 months, so it'll be available on other platforms.
Okay.
If you want to find out more about it, you can go to my website, which is lovelynbettison.com, or you can go to Amazon and you can just search for my name, Lovelyn Bettison, or you can just search for the title of the book, Isle of Gods 1.
All right, awesome. And are you writing other books right now? Another series, or what's next?
I've always got something else cooking up in my head.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
that.
I'm writing something else right now. It's going to be another thing that is fantasy driven.
Oh, really?
And,
okay.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
So you're a dedicated novelist, basically. That's what you are.
Yes, I am.
Because you had a podcast before, and you were nonfiction before, and now you just shifted to just being a novelist. I think that's admirable. Yeah.
Thank you. It was a hard shift. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was.
Why?
It takes part of my problem was I didn't have confidence about my writing like I always, ever since I was a little girl. What did I want to do? I wanted to write books. I wanted to write novels. I wanted to make up stories. But, you're told, or at least I was told as a kid, you need to do something else because that's not going to work out for you. And then it was hard to have any confidence about my ability to do that, to write these kinds of books.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of people can relate to that. All right, well, congratulations on your book, and much success to you in the future, really. And again, what a great interview. So thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All righty, guys. Thank you so much, Lovelyn. Thank you so much. Another wonderful interview. That was great. You should go pick up that book, Isle of Gods, Book 1. Go to Amazon right now. Lovelyn Bettison, she's a writer on her way. It's so exciting to see people doing what they love to do, and especially as a writer, as a fiction writer. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And so congratulations on your novel. By the way, guys, you can pick up her book from our website. We're affiliated with Amazon at frederickbuy.com, Frederick with a C, buy like bye.com, and Amazon kicks back a few bucks to the show. and it helps cover production costs at no additional cost to you, no hidden fees, no nothing. So if you like what you hear, you can help by going over to frederickby.com and click her page in the blog and click the link to her book at the end of the blog, and it's that simple. Also, if you're an Amazon shopper, period, when you use our Amazon links at frederickby.com, you can do so easily. Just click in the sidebar for all your online shopping, and you can bookmark it to find it easier. It is really that simple. Also, guys, we're looking for new hosts on the network. So if you are somebody who's passionate, positive message, you have something you want to spread a message, you want to be part of a cool team, hey, contact us, frederickby.com. Click on Become a Host in the header. And also, the Creative Magic Store is open and live. Well, it's designed with meaning, meant to inspire you, tap into your intuition, and add a little bit of magic into your life. So go to frederickby.com and click Creative Magic Store in the header. And finally, this podcast is free every time you download it on iTunes, Stitcher. Please go over there, subscribe. It is listener supported. Tell a friend, leave a 5-star review. Really helps a brother out. It really does help a brother out. And hey, this is the first episode of 2017. I think it was pretty cool. I love talking to her. She's an amazing woman, and I'm sure you're going to have a great year. If you're listening to this show, you're going to have a great year. You are blessed. You are blessed. All right, with this, stay safe, and don't forget, live with purpose, passion, fire, and love. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Frederick By Show. For more information, go to frederickby.com. That's Frederick with a C, by like bye-bye.com.